My 4-year story. I have been married for almost 5 years and have a 4-year-old son. My wife really wants another child, but I have always been satisfied with one. The main reason for me not wanting more kids is basically I don't have much patience for the hassle involved. Our marriage took a nosedive due to my negative attitude. Although I would know what to expect with having additional children, I can't ever see myself really wanting more kids. This has become a strong issue in my marriage. My wife would like to have at least 2 kids, mostly for my son to have a sibling. My wife has been ready to separate because of my attitude about various issues, but is willing to stay and work it out. But she still feels a lot of resentment towards me for not wanting more kids. I told her that I would have more kids if it meant keeping our marriage and family intact, but that is not good enough. She wants me to also want more kids as bad as she does. Has anyone ever been in a situation like this where one spouse wants more kids and the other doesn't, and they ultimately decide to have another one to appease one of the spouses? Does that usually end up being a good thing or a bad thing? For now, my wife is trying to focus on building her career. If it works out well, she may have to travel quite a bit for jobs, seminars, training, etc. She says that her career will, for now, fill the void of not having another child. My job is also unpredictable. I don't have to travel, but I often have to work 12+ shifts, weekends, nights. It would seem like having more kids would just complicate things even more. I don't mind her needing to travel for a better job opportunity, but I also don't want to be raising multiple kids on my own. Something has to give, but I'm not sure what and when. I always felt my wife hated being a stay-at-home wife. She hates being in the house. She likes to be out doing things, and that usually means spending money. Her line of work allows her to be out of the house doing work that she likes and getting the social time that she craves. We have been to counseling, and I have taken responsibility for my negative attitude. Prior to meeting my wife, I didn't really want kids. I also had no eagerness to get married. After meeting her, I decided I wanted to have a family, but I guess I couldn't override my old programming. Having a kid felt like a restriction of freedom. My wife and I were accustomed to doing what we wanted whenever, and having a kid, plus extra financial burdens of taking care of a family versus just I, felt suffocating. For me, when the money is really tight, I am always in a bad mood. My parents struggled with money all the time and they were never happy. And I seem to be the same way. When money is more plentiful, things are better. Some say money can't be happiness, but for me it relieved a lot of stress. A lot of the things that we like to do aren't free, and we haven't done a good job of finding free activities to do. I am a homebody and don't mind being at home, but she hates it. We had a short courtship and she was pregnant within a few months of being married. So we didn't have much time just as a couple. We decided it was best to have a baby early rather than later. But in retrospect, I have had my doubts. The baby years were tough for me and I did not deal with it in a positive way. And I was also working a lot of hours at my job. My wife had a high-risk pregnancy followed by long bouts of depression. My son is older now and it is much better. But I'm afraid of going through that again. My wife blames me for all of the issues that we have. I am reliable, trustworthy, and a good provider, but I am lacking in the areas that women crave: empathy, romance, passion, etc. I guess these issues weren't that apparent when we were engaged. She thinks that by engrossing herself in her career that maybe she will grow to like that rather than being focused on having another child. She said time may heal her resentment towards me, or maybe it won't. I think she will stay married as long as I am able to provide for her, but I wonder what may happen if she is able to support herself. As a Christian, she doesn't believe in divorce, but everyone has their breaking point. She has been ready to walk out the door before, but not divorce. As strange as it may sound, her threatening to leave made me beg her to stay, but also made me resent her for wanting to break her vows. And therefore I didn't have much ambition to try to make things better. Sounds like a revolving door of issues. Right now, her job keeps her close to home, but it is also by appointment, which means it is unpredictable. She ultimately wants to live in a different area where the industry is better, and her goal is to make it to such a level that she will be sought after in different areas of the country for clients, shows, seminars, etc. She is a hairstylist. I think she likes the idea of having a family to come home to. She also wants my son to have a sibling. I think that is more important to her than simply wanting another child for herself. I don't think she views her career as a threat to being a mom, but everyone knows that work-life balance is very hard to achieve for people with career ambitions. Sacrifices have to be made and you have to find an unbalance that is acceptable. The problem is that my job is unpredictable too. So far, I have been relying on her to be home while I work, but now she will want me to hold down the home front if she has to go away. With our kinds of jobs, that will be difficult. Half a year later, this year was the worst. We nearly called it a quits. We decided to stay in it and not give up easily. However, my wife longs to have her own space. She feels to run down by doing the duties of a wife and mom. She found zero satisfaction in being a stay-at-home mom because she didn't have the freedom to run around like she wanted. She is now working and enjoys having her own money and not having to ask me for much, but her career is still not where she wants it to be. She gets extremely frustrated at me for not cleaning around the house as often as she thinks it should be done. She doesn't agree with having set cleaning days. Instead, she relies on me to clean when I decide to, but it is never enough. Anyway, it has gotten to the point where I think the best way to maybe save the marriage is to live apart. I don't want this for myself. I just feel that if she doesn't have her own space, that she will eventually leave in a bad way. She hates having to take care of a house. She hates me for wanting to know where she is when I haven't heard from her, etc. All of this causes a lot of daily tension. It's worse now since she is working 12 hours per day. She isn't making enough to support herself apart from me. But if she did come into some big money, I think she would divorce me. She watches too many reality shows where women find fame and money and leave their husbands. I was looking for someone with a similar story of a stressful marriage where the spouses decided to live apart and ended up being happier, and how they changed the tension to peace. I really hope we cannot go down this route, but if my wife ever does make enough money to move out and our state of marriage is the same, I assume she will live separate from me. That way she doesn't have to worry about cooking and cleaning for me, and she can rip and run without being accountable to me. I still have a problem with that part. She feels I need to know her every move. Not true. When hours go by with no word from her, I want to know what's going on. Maybe the worry is there because phones keep us so connected and she chooses not to connect. Counseling is actually what kept us going. It was with our pastor and first lady. They told us their story and it motivated us to keep working. I took the blame for certain things early on, but she has so much resentment about certain things that it seems like she can't let it go. The issue is that I was not as involved during her pregnancy and baby years of our son as I should have been. That resentment still exists along with many other emotions. We still spend time together, but she is most happy when she is not home. She doesn't like a typical family home life. She likes to be out in the world doing her own thing. The situation is weird now because she works until 10 p.m. at night. Quality time is limited, but even when we had time, she didn't like being at home. She blames me for everything that has gone wrong when maybe she just can't admit that marriage and family isn't for her. I don't know. Sometimes it seems to make more sense to live apart, visit, go on dates, etc. That way she can't blame me for what is wrong in her life and I don't have to put up with the mood swings. I never considered consulting an attorney, but I guess it would be good so that we know the legal implications, especially if she decides to go from simply living separate to an actual separation to use for a divorce. I think she wants her own physical space where she isn't accountable to me about the residence and her money. She thinks I ask too many questions about where she is going or what she spent her money on, is spending her money on. Her biggest housing complaint is that I don't cook and clean enough. 2 years later, things got really bad in 2013. 2014 was more peaceful, but I was working too much to think about our issues. But my wife had been spending a lot more time away from home and I accused her of cheating. She always denied it because she was also out with friends. I found evidence of an affair a few weeks ago but waited to bring it up this weekend. She has been seeing someone else for a year. Discreet, she said. No other friends involved. Mostly for the emotional connection. There was physical affair involved too. Our bedroom life has been lacking due to her low drive after childbirth and my inability to learn her body. Our bedroom life before childbirth was fantastic. The affair was in response to years of my neglect of being emotionally available for my wife. She needs constant reinforcement to feel loved, and I failed at doing that, and consistently doing the things the men are supposed to do show their wives that they are appreciated. She also has deep wounds from being abandoned by her parents. I can't relate to it since I had both of mine, and I was expected to fill the void by being an awesome husband. I am well aware of the pain this has caused by my lack of the emotions of empathy and compassion, but I also didn't change my actions to at least fake it while I improved. So now things are at rock bottom. Many years of her pain was dumped on me in one day after the affair was confirmed. She wants to make it work out with me, but only if I change and really commit to counseling this time. We did before but stopped going. We ended up being different than what we expected from our short courtship, so we need to decide if we are compatible. My trust in her is broken. Even though I hurt her by my pulling away emotionally, her affair hurts me too. I started probing her with questions and telling her to cut off contact with the other guy and refrain from one-on-one contact with other men. This was on Saturday. Got worse today. She says I have a right to feel upset, but asking all of these questions makes it worse. She didn't want to tell me anything at first because it would be too painful. I am hurt more by the lies and deception. She said she felt lied to and deceived as well by my actions. So, the shoe is on the other foot now. She has let herself down and broke one of God's commandments. She is a very spiritual person and our marriage is from a Christian perspective. So, divorce shouldn't be an option, but we are human and can only sustain so much. We are looking into counseling this week. For anyone who has been through this, is it best to avoid discussing the details of the affair or just let a counselor handle the approach? My wife said that it was a simple affair due to getting emotional fulfillment from someone else and no other details are needed. Part of me wants to hear more and part of me doesn't. I found out by snooping around after a family member said she saw my wife with another guy. She says I looked into her stuff. She just thinks I need to keep my mouth shut and focus on repairing the hole in our marriage and not focus on her infidelity. She is equally hurt by this, and that seems to be clouding her ability to let me grieve. She said if I had cheated then she wouldn't want the details. At this point she is so angry with me that we may have some sort of trial separation. I will need my own counseling too. I don't have good emotional intelligence and I don't have the sensitive qualities that women want in a man. My wife is an amazing person and I let her down big time. Giving up would be easy, but I need to improve myself even if she leaves. The lies and deception are what hurt most. I have never cheated physically or emotionally with anyone. I have other resources to release tension when my wife was unwilling to bond. I didn't think it was a big deal. It works for maybe a month. It was great, but she ultimately felt it was not right. I don't remember her telling me to get rid of it, but now she claims she felt it was cheating because I wasn't willing to focus solely on her for fulfillment. She claims I always pulled away from her. It wasn't like I pulled away to be selfish. She didn't want to bond anymore, and when we did, she didn't even enjoy it. At the end of the day, all that matters is whether or not we are willing to let go of the past. My wife is a very genuine and spiritual person, but has always kept parts of her life hidden. She kept certain things from me because of my bad attitude. She stopped talking to me about a lot because I would ask too many questions instead of listening. I definitely know she is not a heartless cheater, but I also don't know if I have the energy to make it work. It's scary because I know I will have a hard time finding someone else. I'm a big introvert. My wife is an extrovert and beautiful. She will have no problem finding another man. For now, I'm going to try to keep my mouth shut and leave it all for counseling. I did talk to my brother only because he has been through this. Prior to marriage, his wife got pregnant by another guy. They made it work and he has been the full-time dad for this child since birth 7 years ago. Counseling is what saved them, but they didn't have the years of pain that my wife says led her to the affair. And remember, this is a woman who I knew had severe emotional baggage from being abandoned in childhood. God allows divorce for adultery only because he knows how hard our hearts can get over a broken marriage. But he wants us to work things out as best as he can. This is her first serious infraction on the marriage. I'm going to go to counseling. If I can't let it go, then the marriage is over. Not as punishment for her, but because I would always hold it over my head. The difference between me and my wife is that she is very spiritually in tune with God. She is a minister and has a prophetic gift. The guilt she feels from letting God down is more than any punishment I can give. Trust me on this. Even the strongest Christians fall. That doesn't mean I abandon them. She revealed where she met him and how long she has been seeing him. I don't need to know the intimate details of their encounters, but I wanted to know the logistics of how things went down, who was involved, etc. I know his name and I also have his phone number. Me contacting him would be bad right now. I may do something I regret. She called him to shut things down. He was upset too. I believe she called him, but I wasn't there to hear it. She did copy me on the text message and blocked his number. Our account shows no further contact with that number. I have not asked to see her phone, but she knows I am requesting 100% honesty and transparency. That is what I'm insecure about now. But she said he was upset too. I imagine he knew she was married, but maybe she gave him false hope. I know of the guy's family and the circles he runs around it, but I don't know him personally. I don't think she has a STD, but told her to get checked out anyway. I was just surprised at how upset she got about the questions. I think it is too much shame and embarrassment. She feels if I knew all of the details then I couldn't move on. Maybe so, but if I ask, I deserve to know. If things don't improve in counseling, then I know where this is headed. I don't know if she has ever cheated before. I only suspected it around the time she says it started. Now the big issue is whether or not I can handle hearing of other affairs. I don't fault her for having a weakness. I even told myself if I had the opportunity for a physical affair, I would take it. I don't need any other emotional attachments. I'm just too introverted to act on it. So, it's not my intention to punish her. She had felt punished long enough by my detachment. But she needs to deal with the pain no matter what. It's so bad now that she is physically sick today. I understand the severity of the situation. It's totally my choice on whether or not I want to give her a second chance. I just think it is worth some more work on both of our parts before giving up. Now if we reconcile and move on and it happens again, then we know where that is going. But divorce could be mad for me. I would get stuck paying a ton of alimony. I know some couples who separated but chose to stay legally married just to avoid financial issues and loss of benefits. We have a counseling session today with a pastor who we spoke to before. He had a similar experience with an unfaithful wife. He basically said we have both wronged each other and we both have to make amends. He said this only works if we both want it to work out. At this point I want to try to work out, and I realize this could be my last chance. For her, she is too confused. You guys aren't here to see it, but I can see the devastation she is going through. She realizes she wasn't strong enough to avoid the temptation of an affair and realizes the deception has caused me pain. But at the same time, She may not have the energy left from years of pain from my emotional detachment to work on healing the marriage. At this point, I have to work on myself to get rid of my emotional detachment issues because this will repeat in other relationships if this one doesn't work out. I can't force her to do anything. Right now, she is torn between waiting more years for me to improve versus leaving and going elsewhere. Not a simple black and white decision for her. I know some people don't have any guilt about their actions, but trust me, the guilt is tearing her apart right now. The pastor is not a licensed counselor, but I do have a request for an appointment with a licensed, certified counselor this week. A pastor's input is good, but I also know that licensed counselors and therapists have been trained with various tool sets that could be effective. Also, I hear that this particular counselor is a woman. Maybe that could be helpful for my wife. The pastor had helped us before and has knowledge of our situation. So he was good first place to start, and he fully supports going to a licensed counselor. I think a few different sources are required. I didn't even ask if other man was married. Our conversation earlier went on a different tangent earlier, and I didn't ask the question. Something tells me he isn't married, but I know he has kids. Most guys in his circle have kids but no wives. Right now, exposing him to his family is not my concern. That does nothing for me at the moment. I do know his name. I know enough to be able to get in contact with him and expose him if needed. I always keep to myself. I'm a homebody and she liked to be out. That made it easy for her to keep Clue hidden for a while. But what I failed to mention in my first post is that a relative of mine had a friend who saw my wife with the other guy and thought something was strange. I confronted my wife about this on the day of the call. She gave me a story that I didn't believe but swore nothing bad was going on. So, I started snooping around and found an older paper trail stashed away in her stuff in the bedroom. She got careless, so, trust me when I say she is embarrassed. But for me to expose the situation any further right now would to other people outside of a small circle would jeopardize any hope of reconciliation. I could easily share it with the world on Facebook, but I won't do that. I couldn't find this guy on Facebook though. I lie in a small city where news can travel fast, so I could do a lot of damage if needed. If I was more of a social guy with more friends, I would have found out about this long ago. She admitted that her logic is screwed up. She never used the word justified. It's just a reaction to being found out in a bad way. I think splitting up and divorce would bring even more shame on her, especially disappointment from her family. She was raised by her aunt and grandma, and they were so excited when got engaged. I think it would really hurt her grandma. Her grandma had 10 kids and stayed in an abusive marriage for a very long time until she had the means to divorce her husband. But as far as I know, she remained faithful in spite of the hardships. Right now, she is feeling every emotion you can think of. I have ups and downs, but she has been in permanent down mode since this all started on Saturday. So, the pain she has now is her judgment and punishment. She met him at a gym she used to go to. From what I have been told, he is friends with other friends of hers, but she says they kept this between them. This is a small city, so everyone seems to know everyone, but I'm one of the few that never socializes with anyone. What I find surprising is that they actually went out in public together. From what I know of growing up in this city and how quickly news can spread, I would never consider having an affair anywhere close to here or with anyone in this town. What I also find ridiculous is how she got mad about my aunt calling me when she heard someone saw her with another guy. She said the appropriate thing would have been to call her. Yeah, right. So, she could lie to more people. Trusting my wife again will be extremely hard. It will take a long time. I'm willing to give it a shot, but neither of us have strong expectations at this point. I'm just curious now to see how an experienced counselor will evaluate the situation. Our bedroom life has not been adequate for me since the 2008 birth of our son. My wife's body chemistry and hormones changed. Prior to this, it was okay. I also generally have a bad attitude about a lot of things, and she was the victim of most of that anger. Basically, I can be very sarcastic and not understanding of problems. Prior to the affair, we did go to counseling, but we stopped. She wanted me to go back, but I never did. I was pretty fed up with years of arguing, so I just focused on my job and my son. My job took up all of my time last year. I worked over 900 hours of overtime. This was involuntary due to the nature of my job and low staffing levels. While I was wrapped up in my job, she was enjoying time with her friends, working her own job, and starting a business on the side. I am 100% responsible for pulling away from her in many ways. We have had countless arguments about these issues, and I improved some but always fell backwards. Instead of saying she had enough and leaving the marriage, she found another guy. Why didn't she leave? She said she still held out hope that I would change. I believe she stayed because we have a son and I pay all of the bills for the house. She probably couldn't afford to live on her own and maintain her standard of living. Her job doesn't pay much income. I don't know if the other guy ever gave her money or not. I admit I'm responsible for pulling away, and she is responsible for doing what she did. I understand that trust is broken and very hard to get back, but not every marriage fails because of this. It is possible to work things out. What I don't know are the success rates, probably small, and as it stands right now, I do believe even if things had gotten better with this discovery, she would have continued it. Even happy couples cheat. Right now, her emotions are all mixed up. Will be interesting to see how she feels when everything calms down. She wants a husband to care for her. This other guy was okay for being a side piece but not husband material. Still waiting to hear back from the licensed counselor. Our pastor only told us we both need to be committed or part ways now and avoid the hassle. I want to see what happens in counseling first before I make other big decisions. When we talk one-on-one, things get too heated. I have a course of action that I feels needs taken. It involves more exposure than what has been done so far. Things are so bad right now, I don't see any harm in waiting another day or two for the appointment. I am willing to give her a second chance at this, but it will require undeniable proof of her intentions. And right now, she is unsure of what she wants. And this has all happened since the weekend. She still has a job to go. I was working at my dad's house while she ran errands last night, such as getting the STD test. She told me where she was going, but it wasn't like I followed her around. The pastor's first wife cheated on him and was not willing to do any repairs. She acted as if nothing was wrong. So, he divorced her. He went on to get married again and have more kids. He wasn't a pastor at the time of the divorce. The cheating wife is remarried too and is a pastor's wife and first lady of a church. She admitted that she should have worked it out. Although both are happy now, there was a lot of pain afterwards. At this point, counseling date has been set. We have done a lot of talking today to review all of the issues over the past 8 years. Still a lot of work to do though, but at least we are both willing to work out. 2 years later, last week she asked for a divorce. She said she wants me to find someone that makes me happy. I don't know if she is seeing someone else or not, but my insecurity always doubts her. That part doesn't matter. Our lives have become completely separate outside of dealing with our son. She can't provide what I want and I haven't provided what she wants. On one hand, I am relieved and feel released from the obligation of trying to build her up, but I am also resentful of her dividing the family. I see so many couples splitting up and families fractured. I hope we can be amicable and friendly about it. She wants a mutual consent divorce and work out terms without court. She doesn't want money except for the car I pay for, but I don't know how she will support herself. My son is with me for now, but ultimately may go with her since the city she lives in has better schools. I also want to move back there, but there are no good jobs for my line work, which is why we had to move in the first place. The drive to my job would be 65 miles. I did that for a few years, but it wore me out. I am an introvert. I put on a friendly social hat at work, but once at home I don't want to be bothered. I do a lot of solo activities, but also hang out with a cousin, but I am not constantly around other guys. Having a female companion was great and I will miss it. But I did feel like I lost her years ago when she chose friends over me and then the affair. Our social circles became completely separate. I was fine with that, but when she never invited me to do anything with her, I knew our future was limited. She is an extreme extrovert who constantly needs attention and reassurance from people. The affair partner provided that, but even she knew he was worthless for a relationship. Not sure if I should seek out another relationship or focus on being single. I don't think I would make a good husband. I am content with my one son, and as much as having a larger family seems like a blessing, I just don't think I have the mental capacity for it. I also don't have the emotional love bank or whatever you call it to nurture a woman whose self-esteem relies on what other people do for her. We will get the divorce, but I will retain an attorney. She doesn't want anything from me except to continue to pay for the car she drives. It's in my name anyway, and to provide for our son. No need for court-ordered support. I'm glad she isn't asking for alimony. She would definitely qualify, but she believes if a person wants to leave a marriage, they need to be able to support themselves. But she isn't 100% there. Legally, in our case, I don't think it matters who actually files the papers, but since she wants the divorce, I will request that she file them. It will be a quick mutual consent divorce. 10 years was a big deal for her in terms of there being a milestone for renewing vows. I never saw the purpose of it, and after the affair she dropped the idea. I was willing to forgive the affair and move on because I understood what led to that point. If I was more extroverted and socialized more, I would have had my own. Even good people will do bad things when they feel they need an escape. I felt betrayed, but she also felt betrayed by my lack of emotional support and not wanting more kids. It may have been naive, but I told her that the affair should even the score and let's focus on trying to rebuild. We went to a Christian counselor, and even she didn't understand why we were still married, just in terms of social differences and upbringing. We all knew it wasn't going to last at this point. My wife felt so beaten down that she had nothing left to give. I felt she was just exaggerating everything, but she came from a childhood of abuse and abandonment. So everything I did, being emotionally distant, was magnified from that experience. She made the mistake of marrying a guy she knew didn't have high potential. He was fun to hang with but didn't make much money, didn't know how to do repairs around the house, and expected her to take care of all of the bills. My comment: it sounds like you two are better off without each other. I would suggest you avoid getting involved with anyone. You claim to have a selfish and uncompromising nature, Both are really bad traits to try and bring into a relationship. If that is who you are, then stay single. That's okay, not everyone is cut out for relationships. If this is something you are unhappy with about yourself, then make sure you work on resolving it before bringing someone else into your life. Best of luck to you. I hope you find happiness. Final ending of this story coming in a few hours from this. You will understand the title of this video in that final part. Stay tuned, sub and bell, and I'll finish the second part after my dentist run.